Welcome back to another episode of the MX Endurance Podcast, where we look at everything that's been happening in the world of endurance sports. My name is Tim Ford, and I'm joined by the penultimate legend, the sexy shepherdess, the sexiest voice in triathlon, James Bale. This week, I feel like I need to give you another nickname because you've got that shining ray of light coming down on your shiny head, mate. You're angelic. Jimbo, how you going, mate?
Yeah, I'm good. Tired, mate. Lots of traveling, as you know, to just get back home over the last few days. And I'm disheveled, as you can probably see. I need a haircut. I've let it grow a bit long. I need a
Obviously,
shave.
it's really
And,
obvious, yeah. There's
but yeah,
luscious
no,
locks, mate.
it's nice to be back in the home office for a few weeks before we start gearing up to head out to sub 8. How are you, mate? I know that you're already gearing up for a trip back to Europe, aren't you?
It's weird to think, isn't it, that I literally got home about a week ago and I'm like away again in a week. I'm away for like a month this time. So
It's strange, isn't it? Because in my head, when we were in St. George, sub was something that was
miles away.
over there somewhere, and you get back and you look at a calendar and you're like, oh shit me, I'm leaving 2 weeks yesterday.
Mate,
All right.
like, honestly, it's nuts. And we were in a meeting just before this, and I was saying, like, the problem with Australia is that you're so far from everywhere. So it was like 20 odd hours. In fact, I think because of my time in Vegas and LAX on the way back to Australia, I ended up traveling for like 36 hours.
Yeah, it's
I'm
a bit much.
it's exhausting. And then going to Europe, same thing. It's like
And
30 odd hours of travel.
even when you've got those layovers, it's not chill time. You're always, the back of your subconscious is on fight or flight. You're like, what time do I need to be where? What time's my flight? What time do I board? It's stressful time traveling. I find it stressful.
One of the best things I've done in recent times is I got myself a club membership. And at LAX, it was the first proper, like, I've used it at Sydney and stuff, but like LAX, they have like showers and a buffet and an open bar. And I actually sat down for like 4 hours. I did a whole bunch of work, which was good because I've been a bit distracted in St. George. And mate, having a shower after like traveling for 20, maybe 15 hours at that point, it was good, mate. Like, that was something I was like, I could get used to this. Like, that was worth it just for that.
I've done that. I've done that at Heathrow a couple of times, and the temptation to get shit faced on the open bar is always there.
when me and Des, my wife, flew to Norway earlier this year, was the first time we went, and because of how COVID's been, they only had first class lounge open, so we were in the first class lounge, and I reckon we probably polished off 2 bottles of champagne before we got on the plane. It was amazing. But I shouldn't talk about that, James, because this podcast is the official podcast of MX Endurance World's premier endurance sports community, created by 4-time world champion Chris McCormack. Jimbo, what's something that you like about MX Endurance?
Well, at the moment, mate, it's the bubbling enthusiasm that's growing towards sub 7, sub 8, because we're starting to see members who are saying they're going to come and watch, they're going to be part of it, and I know that MX has got the ongoing. How quick can the MX Endurance members do the iron distance to compare? What time are we at, man?
Yeah. I think we're currently 8:50 is where we've gone down to, which is good. The
Okay,
swim
so
was
we're sub
51
9.
minutes.
We're sub
9. We got 50 odd minutes to go before we get sub 8.
Yeah.
It was good though. So for people who watch the St. George coverage or whatever, there was from the top of the Vale Loop, there's a good descent all the way back down to St. George. And a few of the people who were racing St. George and some people like myself who were over there, we all clocked our 5K fast time down that hill. I think the fastest is like 6 minutes or something. And like, I think I was like 6 minutes 15. Like, so yeah, I would encourage our members, if you're trying to submit your fastest 5K, find a really nice long downhill.
Yeah,
just
yeah.
fucking bomb it, because that's a really good way to get that average
Yeah,
speed.
I probably got mine coming down through Snow Canyon with the tunes blasting in my ears. That was a good descent,
good, mate. Oh, mate. It's funny. I was listening to Joe's podcast Triathlon Mocker Day, and Tom was talking about St. George a bit, and he's saying like the coffee was bad and the food was bad and the roads were bad. And I was like, I had a very different experience in St. George, Tom, because I thought the coffee was actually surprisingly good for America.
The single best coffee shop in America, didn't we? That was.
Oh, mate, that coffee
I remember the look on your face when we first took our boat. We both took our sips and we're like, "Oh, bloody hell! Actually, good coffee in America." Well,
I couldn't believe it. So,
yeah,
I think one day I went there. It was, what was it called? It was called Maya's Cafe, Gaia's Cafe, Gaia's Cafe.
Yeah.
And I went back one day, and they were having. I waited 45 minutes for that coffee, and they're like, "Oh, if we just want a refund, it's fine." But no, I'll wait for the coffee, thanks, because this is the only place I found anywhere in this country the coffee's actually acceptable. So I waited literally 45 minutes for a coffee because it was so good. But mate, I think the other thing, I don't know if I talked about this on the podcast last week, but the last meal I had in St. George was chicken waffles. Now, I know that you're plant-based, so you probably don't partake in something like chicken waffles, but fucking hell, it is. I can't stop thinking about chicken waffles, mate. I think I'm a bit obsessed with chicken waffles now. It was a life changing experience for me, and oh man, I want to go back to St George just to go back to that place to have chicken waffles again. It was so
I
good.
think we
So
finally found your nickname for the podcast, mate. Chicken waffle.
I'll cop that. That's fine. It's the legs, man. I've got those thick thighs like a juicy chicken.
I think if you're used to European roads, so from what Tom was saying, I think if you're used to European roads for cycling, then going over to America is a different experience, because as beautiful as the surroundings can be, when you're on a 3-4 lane highway in the hard shoulder, it's just not, it's not as
Yeah.
intimate experience as you used to for riding a bike. And
See,
they do
I
it for
definitely,
training.
yeah.
It's not as relaxed.
I think there was definitely parts of St George. I think when we rode a bit together, it was pretty. It wasn't great. I was okay. I've run in Sydney, so I'm pretty used to it. But
Yeah.
the thing you didn't get to get on that Vale loop, mate. And out there, it was exquisite. Like, it was
Yeah,
fantastic.
I just kept getting iller and iller as the week went on. So it was, and then my rear derailleur shat the bed, and I had
I
to
think it
get
was more
that
the derailleur
fixed.
thing, to be honest. It was. I
Yeah.
noticed it was strategic. He's like, "Oh, mate, it happening going downhill." I'm like, "Yeah, sure, Jimbo. Roll back, mate. No worries, mate. We'll go do
Yeah,
the hard part. You've done the
I just
downhill."
let go of your wheel and just started kicking my derailleur.
I did think, I was like, "Where's he gone?" Yeah, you are banging it with you take your shoe off and you're smashing the trailer with it.
Stuck in
Oh,
the top
sorry, Tim.
gear,
I can't
watching
go
you
do
two
that.
disappear into the. I was like full on. I was on the drop, sprinting out the saddle, shouting, "Wait!"
I did appreciate you stopping at that set of traffic lights on the slide uphill in your hardest gear.
Oh,
And you're
yeah, it
going,
was.
I'm just like literally spinning at like 90 RPM in my small charing posh. Like, you're right there, mate. And you're fucking sweating bullets
It
in
was
the hardest, like a track star.
it's like a track start. Yeah, and then you gave me a little push, which I appreciated.
I nearly fell over doing that, to be honest. I nearly came off my bike. I didn't realize how heavy you were, mate, and it nearly threw. No,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just
You
teasing you.
just wanted to touch my bum.
It's true, mate. I mean, any opportunity that was probably why
Yeah.
we didn't do many podcasts, because every time we podcast, I kept trying to sit there with my hand on your ass, and you're like, mate, stop it. This isn't
Yeah,
professional.
yeah.
So.
I'm gonna have to do an email to the employer at some point.
I'm the boss of MX, mate, so it'd be to me. But look, we've derailed this enough to start. Let's get into some triathlon stuff, because there's plenty to talk about this week in triathlon. The first thing we're going to talk about is an article comes from John Levinson at Tri247, and that is very, very frustrating Alistair Brownlee on the pain of the St George KO. Ali talking about his withdrawal, his inability to race. He said, I went from last weekend being in a position thinking that I'm in a place here physically as good as I've been for a long time and looking forward to trying to win the race, to then thinking that I can't even compete. I think it was a bit of a flare-up of an illness that I'd had before. It was very, very frustrating sitting there watching the race. I was well before. When you're training that hard, you're always on a bit of a line, but I thought I was okay. In the days before the race, I was just struggling. Felt really, really rough, and just thought I can't start a race where I'm definitely not in a position to race as well as I want to race. Very frustrating. Reflections on the men's race in St. George. Frustration was perhaps heightened when having to watch the race from the sidelines. I was personally a little surprised that there was both a small lead group in the swim and they stayed clear for the entire 180 kilometers on the bike too. What was Alice's take on how the race played out? Yeah, I didn't expect that to happen. I was just watching it, to be honest, really frustrated, thinking this would have worked out perfectly for me. It was definitely not what I expected. I expected probably quite a big front pack as it came together, then really not a lot happening until the back end of the race when it got hilly and stuff, and then groups forming. Then just come down to a running race with the two Norwegians dominating it. Jimbo, here we are.
Yeah, I thought this is an interesting. I mean, there's a much longer and larger article on Tri247 where they go into detail, do a longer interview and talk about the rest of the year and put some context into it. So go and check that out. But I thought this was just an interesting little snippet because I think, mate, there was something going around in St George, wasn't there? A lot of people had this weird sinusy virus thing, myself included, including you, and I think it came on quick for a few people. You can be feeling fine one day and the next minute suddenly you were out the race, and that's what happened to Ali. And I can't imagine. I mean, I know the frustration as a shit age group athlete when I have a DNF.
Give yourself some credit, mate.
You
A
know,
middling
or
age grouper.
yeah, middle of the road, bolding, getting a bit old age grouper. When you have a blowout or something in the start of a bike ride, and you have to go and how angry I get when I'm walking back to my hotel room and have to sit and ignore the race because I just don't want to be there anymore because my whole holiday's been based around this race. I know that feeling, but amplify that times a million when you're a pro athlete. And you're Alistair Brownlee, and up until the day before, pretty much the day before the race, you think you're going to be racing this thing on top form, and you then to have to sit and watch it play out, and watch it play out in a way that you think would have benefited you as an athlete, as strategically,
Yeah.
must be. I mean, it's similar feelings that we know Joe Skipper's had because we've had lots of chats with him about it.
Yeah, it's. I think being on the ground, like the Gustav announcement that came out wasn't that big a shock. Like I was like, oh god damn, like damn, I guess he
Mm,
really is sick. Because, but when Ali came out, Ali's also. I was like bullshit. Like I did. It was that nah, come on. Like we were
yeah,
there the day before, and I was like, nah, it's not true. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Like that was a
yeah.
real like okay. It was that
Yeah,
was probably for me. Like I was like I'm a bit less interested in this race now. Like that was the sort of the. I mean, I didn't lose interest. I loved the race and I thought it was incredible. But I really wanted to see where I wanted to see Ali. And I wanted to see where he's at because he's obviously got sub 7 up in like what 2 weeks now. And this was going to be an opportunity to say, okay, because there's always these question marks hanging over his head. Like, has Ali Brownlee not got long course in him or what? I think he does. It was like, okay, let's see where he's at. So, I mean, it kind of makes sub a little bit more exciting to see what he's going to drop because it's the unknown. But yeah,
mm. Yeah, man, you were out riding when that news of Ali pulling out the race had dropped, and we learnt of Gustav in the morning. And I sent you a message saying Ali's out, and I was spent the next 3 hours just checking my phone, waiting till you'd read it because I knew it was going to be. It was a crippler.
yeah,
I felt that slight. I felt that it took away from the race somewhat, not from Blumenfeld's victory because it was astounding, but it
yeah.
was it was the final sort of like not him too. Come on, where are all the favourites are pulling out? But
You know,
I think,
it's like it's interesting because we've got a bit of distance from it now. I think last week we were both. It was pretty like getting last week's episode done was really stressful to be honest, and I definitely don't think it was our best work. But
no,
I think we've got a bit of distance from the race now, and I mean, some of the things I look at, and I really wonder how the race would have played out if you had have had a fully fit, fully stacked field. I genuinely think the results would have been very different. I'm not trying to I think that Christian and Gustav are absolute superstars. But looking at what happened in St George, where Christian missed that front pack in the swim, and then that hey, he was lucky Cam Worth rode through. I think I said to you like Christian owes Cam Worth a few beers
mm.
for that. But I feel like if Ali and and Jan were in that lead group at the front, they would the lead out of the water probably would have been a little bit more because the pace would have been a bit higher, maybe. But they wouldn't have they would have ridden more time. I think they would have been able to stay with it more. And then if they had have had 6 minutes, whatever, over Christian, he wasn't going to make up that. Like he ran a 2:38, and I still reckon that you would have seen Frodo and Ali running low 2:40s.
Yeah,
So
and then you
like,
throw fully fit Joe Skipper into that mix as well. You
yeah,
know, you've got different dynamics all over the course, and yeah, but then it's interesting how what does Gustav do to that dynamic as well?
mm,
It's unique. I mean, it's very difficult, shoulda, woulda, coulda's type scenario because the race played out as it played out. Within you play the hand you dealt, but I think
and the best guy won, mate. Like well and
yeah,
truly, like Christian was exceptional on race day. Like, and again, you can see he
without
did that
question,
slightly
yeah,
under the weather. Like, fuck, mate, it was something.
yeah.
So
Kona's going to be fun, eh?
yeah. Oh, mate. Like again, and I know I said this last week. I should just appreciate what we've got going. But fucking hell, I'm so amped for Kona now, and I'm just fingers crossed that everyone's fit and fighting fit, and everyone's good to go. It's gonna be a fucking battle, mate. Because again, it ain't a hilly tough course like St George's. It's a fast course for the bike. So
Yeah, it gives it a bit of time as well. Kona's got the time. We're coming out of the COVID rampage, and Kona gives a bit more time for all these other weird viruses that we've all been not getting for 2 years to get through the fucking system and everybody to get a bit better. Because I don't know, I think we're just at the moment the world's coming back together and everybody's like, oh, remember what colds are? Here's a load of them.
I know. Well, I think that's the other thing. There was a lot of concern that what happened to Ali that it was COVID, but it definitely doesn't sound like it because
No,
I would assume that if he had COVID, he wouldn't be doing sub in 2 weeks, and
no.
we've heard he's full on. He's doing sub. So that's the thing. Like everybody hears sickness, it's like COVID. It's like no, there's a lot of other stuff. I mean, it sounds like there's plenty of COVID going. I saw Sebi Keenler came back positive. Um, so there was plenty of other stuff going around St George, and again, it makes sense when you consider you got people come from all over the world to one place. And again, it's like, what's COVID in America? Um, I'm
Yeah.
not surprised that there was more than just COVID going around. So
Flying on long tubes of people when no one's wearing a mask and all the air's being recycled. You know, not surprising
I
that a
wore a
bunch of
mask the whole
European
plane,
people.
mate.
So
Whole
did
plane.
I. So did I. But I was
Yeah.
probably one of the only ones. But it's not surprising all the Europeans got sick because we were just
Mm,
bombarded.
not used to it.
Hmm.
Well, look, let's keep going, mate. The next piece of news, I put this in the deck of the doc, especially for you, James Bell, because I know you are a British man, and I know that one thing that the British love is to go holiday in Ibiza, or however you say it. So you'll be
Ibiza.
very excited to hear, James, that Ibiza is to host the World Triathlon Multisport Championships in 2023. We've
Oh,
got this
nice.
from
We'll be able to
Ronnie
go out and
von
spend. We'll be able to
Willy
stay in my summer house in
Schubel.
Ibiza when that's on it.
Do you have a summer house in Ibiza?
No, of course I don't.
Yeah, I was like, "Yeah." I was like doing this to be sarcastic. It's like I actually really love it, mate. Like, no, I'm like I'm the mayor of Ibiza. They know me as like
I'm the
Jimbo the
mascot.
Mad Dog.
I'm the
Jimbo the
mascot.
Mad Dog of Ibiza. He's a legend. You walk down the main town, everyone's high fiving you, getting you to kiss their babies and stuff. You're like, I'm
Yeah,
home. I'm back with my people. Ibiza will welcome the 2022. I'm committed to Ibiza. I don't know if it's correct, but I'm going to.
Ibiza is correct. Yeah.
Ibiza will welcome the 2023 World Triathlon Multisport Championships between April 29th and May 7th next year. While the aquathon and duathlon events will be hosted in Santa Eulalia, Eulalia,
Santa Alulia, I would assume.
Eulalia, El, ooh, I don't know how to say this. I can't wrap my mouth. Eulalia, Eulalia, Eulalia.
Alulia. Yeah.
I don't know.
Anyway.
Anyway, San Antonio provide athletes with a beautiful location for cross triathlon and cross duathlon. The Multi-Sport World Championships has been one of our most successful events in the last few years since we launched this product, and I'm sure that the perfect combination of welcoming people, great weather conditions, and stunning scenarios combining pristine beaches with wonderful nature will be a great setting for the Ibiza Multi-Sport World Championships, World Triathlon President Marisol Casado said. Now, have you ever been there, mate?
No, I've never been to Ibiza. It's definitely got a reputation as a party town, and it's where everybody goes to, not go to bed all night and stay up eating sweeties. But it's also got a reputation for being a beautiful place as well. If you if you step out of the party town, it is a beautiful place. So it'll be quite the visage, I think, as they race across the island. I don't think it's going to be a bad place to hold it at all. And just because it's got that reputation for in one small location for the party town doesn't mean that the rest of the island is not going to be a stunning place to see these athletes race.
It's like Phuket. I love going to Phuket to train. Everyone's like, it's a party town. I'm like, mate, there's so much more to Phuket than Bangalore Road or whatever it's called. I mean, does this being there make you want to do it? Like, do you go, oh, maybe I could do Ibiza
No,
Multi-Sport World
not really.
Championships?
I
Fair
haven't
enough.
got
There you go.
I haven't really
You're a
got
bad
any
British man.
interest. I haven't got a huge amount of interest in qualifying for stuff,
Southern
or
Europe.
racing, multi-sport world championships, or anything like that. I mean, I would be keen to go and experience it and have a look around and watch the racing. That would be cool. But no. Right now, mate, for me, just being able to run on my ankle is the priority, and actually thinking about racing is upsetting.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I
Does
get
it make
mate.
you want to do it? You're going to go to Ibiza?
Nah,
Because
not
there's
at
that
all.
song, isn't there? You could put that on your headphones and your 20
What's
hour
the
flight.
song? What's the
Go
song?
into Ibiza. Like that. It's like
I've never heard any music that sounds
like
anything remotely like that.
it's I probably got the tune wrong. It's like an anthem.
Okay, I trust you, mate. Again,
I don't know what band it is.
Should you
What
sing
band
some
it
more
is?
of it for our audience? Should we
No,
see
I
if
don't
this
think
boosts
so.
the download numbers?
Hang on.
No, don't, because we'll get copyright struck.
No, I'm not going to play it. I just want to see what band it is. It's
Okay.
We're going to Ibiza by the Venga Boys.
The Venga Boys. I know the Venga
Yeah.
bus is coming and all together
Yeah,
pump in or something.
Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's
New
the
York
same
to San
people.
Francisco and something disco.
Yeah.
The
I mean,
wheels are
it's
still I could go.
the mists of time in the 90s, I think. But there you go.
We're going to Ibiza. I don't know that song. I'll have to again. I'll check.
You could have it on
afterwards.
repeat for your 32-hour journey. Just
I will sing it. I'll be the guy on the plane singing it out loud the whole time. People are like, shut the fuck up, get off the plane. Probably wouldn't be too popular.
No.
Let's move on. The next article, you put this in, it's quite meaty, so I'm going to allow you to take the lead in this, mate, because I don't want to read that much.
Yeah, that's fine. Sub-8 paces have been revealed for Cat Matthews and Nicholas Spirig. I took the condensed article from John Levinson on Stride 24/7, so the longer article is there for you to go and have a perusal of. But cycling power for Matthews,
give him a follow.
The core team supporting Matthews is from the professional cycling peloton, with a twist of triathlon added into the mixed. Just as Alistair Brownlee has called upon the services of a number of riders from the Ribble Weldeer team, Matthews will be backed by several names from the UK domestic cycling team, the independent Pedalar Noppins. These include Jennifer George, twice Scottish champion, Kelly Murphy,
Was that
Irish
again?
record holder, and individual
Can you,
pursuit,
what team
and
is it?
Alex Clay. Yeah, I messed up, but I'm not. I'm going forward, mate. I don't look backwards. I look forwards.
Come on, I want
Other
to.
name.
I enjoyed that.
Other names include Emily Meakin, Frankie Hall, and Leah Dixon, the 2021 Welsh National Road Racing Champion, with Roos Astle and India Lee thrown in as triathletes who are going to be multitasking. As well as those 6 names from the cycling world, Cat will also be assisted by triathletes Roos Astle and multiple 70.3 winner and India Lee, who will also assist on the other disciplines. In the case of Lee, it could be a busy day as she will also set to be a swim pacer too. Cat, and I quote, "Selection for my sub-8 team has been challenging and a very whirlwind-esque. However, I have not had to compromise at all on the absolute dream team that I wanted, which was incredible. Selection obviously was based on performance predominantly, but there's been a big factor of communication and the relationship between me, them, and the team as a whole. That's really been important to me because I think that's such a key element of the whole day and the week in the build-up to this." Now, have a quick chat around Kat's team, because what she says there is what we've seen playing out, which is she didn't have as much time as the other people doing this event to think about her team, to select her team. But what we've seen happening in the background is such an impressive bringing together of personalities and skills, and with a real focus on bike strength, communication, power, and discipline. And I think it's going to be cool as fuck, mate.
I think it's worth, and again, we are in a different position to lots of people because we've seen this happen, and I think I want to give a bit of a shout out to Kat about this because I think it speaks volumes of sort of Kat as a person, how like quickly she did this, but how everybody is so like 100% we want to help Kat do this. Like I think it really speaks to, mate, she's got some really loyal friends and obviously great connections in the sport. So I was sitting there going, holy crap. I mean, as you know, man, I am the world's biggest cycling fan. There's no one, not only am I the biggest fan, I know more about cycling than anybody else. So when I saw this, I was like blown away by the quality and the depth of her obviously British time
Yeah,
trial
like you
team. 'Cause
say,
as
the
you know, I've told you
keenness.
before. Yeah.
What have you told me before?
About a British time trialing is the best. It's obviously such a.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
think I even maybe told you about this a lot. So
the history and depth of talent for British time trialing is going to be on display here, and like you say, it really when Kat came on board for the sub-8 challenge, there was like, how quickly can she get a team together, and it was very quick, and the enthusiasm and team likeness of the group that's formed is very cool. It's
you
very
wouldn't
cool.
think it was done on as quickly. Like that's what I mean. Like it's been so impressive to see how quickly it's come together and how close they already seem. Like I think it's
Oh,
it's
mate, I
fire,
love a
mate.
pace line. I do. It's going to be good. Seeing all
It's
these
gonna be so.
riders going round and around this track, I'm up for it. And then there's going to be me, because are we allowed to announce? Am I allowed to say who one of the commentators coming over is, or is that off the table yet?
I think I don't know. I know they announced their commentary team, and there was certain people that were omitted from it, but the main commentary team you can, I think.
But what about, we know
Nah,
someone
maybe
who's,
not. Maybe
no,
not.
all right, all right.
Maybe
But
I don't
anyway,
know.
there's going to be
Maybe not.
you, me, and this other individual who's going to be coming over to help with some commentary, and we're going to form our own pace line and go around that racetrack. And I'm looking forward to that, mate.
Can you hold on, mate? Or are you going to blow over a derailleur again?
Well, I don't think, out of the 3 of us, from what I've heard, it's going to be me that's having trouble holding the wheel.
Interesting. Okay.
Anyway,
Okay.
and moving on to Nicola, she's got more of a multi-sport focus. There's a difference in approach, it seems, for Spirig to both Matthews and the sub-7 guys, with just 2 athletes selected in a cycling-only capacity. Both of those also have significant triathlon connections too. Also calling upon the talents of the similar team to Kat, Spirig will also have the talents of Joanna Patterson, the Scottish-based Irish national TT champion. She will also have the compatriot and 2019 Ironman 70.3 podium finisher Imogen Simmons in cycling mode. Joining that duo are Lizzie Brooke, Ironman champion Ellis Visser, world duathlon
Elzvisa?
champion Elsvira, medalist Melanie, how do I say that name? Melanie
Mora?
Maurer,
Mora?
plus
Mora?
more triathlon skills courtesy of Luisa Baptista, Amelia Watkinson, and Great Britain's Lucy Buckingham. That group will provide a wide range of run pacer options. Nicola, and I quote, said, that led me to looking at the strongest female triathletes and also some duathletes. I started to ask athletes who I know and train with. I was very lucky to be training on an international squad. In the end, I'm very happy with my team. I think it's a great mix. I have strong riders. I also have tall riders, which is important to get a good draft behind them. I have 3 or 4 riders who can actually hold the required pace over a longer time, so we don't have to switch every 2 minutes. Like we have been saying all along, one of the most interesting elements of this sub 7, sub 8 challenge is the difference in approaches and strategies that some of these athletes are taking. And there's a clear example of it here because Kat's come
Yeah.
in and gone, bike power, bike experience. The bike is where I'm gonna put my eggs. And looking at Nicola, she's gone for a more of a rounded multi-sport approach. And I know personally which one I would favor.
Yeah.
So
It's funny because if you had have asked me this maybe 6 months ago about how I would approach it, I think the natural thing would have been to come up with a list of triathletes.
yeah,
I
but
would
you
have
don't
gone,
know
"Oh, I'd
shit,
have
do you?
Jan Frodeno and sorry?
You don't know shit though, do you?
Well, it's again, mate, it's a character I play because obviously I know all this stuff about cycling and I've got so much knowledge, but I would have said that to you to give you the false sense of
To set
security,
me up,
basically.
so I could
Basically
have a
correct, yeah,
little
'cause I would have.
moment of joy.
But, like, looking at these teams in comparison, I'm looking at Nicola's team going, "What the fuck is Nicola doing?" Like, I think this is a big error on Nicola's part, to be honest. Like, I'm not trying to discredit. I think that, there's some amazing athletes. I know some of these athletes personally, incredible. But I just think the approach is wrong to me. Like, it looks like she's picked a bunch of training partners, kind of like, I guess, kind of like what we assumed Christian was gonna do. We assumed Christian would have Gustav and Caspar, and he hasn't. He's gone the complete opposite. He's sort of gone like 3 of them have gone the similar route, I think, where you've got Ali, Christian, and Kat who've all gone British team time trialing, and then you got Nicola who's doing the more traditional triathlon thing. And I think, personally, I mean, again, I don't know. I think it's a huge mistake, mate. Like, I really think Nicola's. The other thing I'm curious about, and I'd like to ask you about is, are we going to see Nicola on a road bike, or is she going to do this on a
I was
TT
about to
bike?
say the same thing. I think I'll bet you a beer that we see Nicola on a road bike with aero bars and a disc wheel.
I agree. I think that's exactly. I don't want to bet the beer because I agree with you. I don't think we're going to see Nicola on
Should
a
we
time trial
just
bike.
should we
I
just
think
have
she's
a
gonna.
beer and toast our brilliance?
Yeah, I think we should do that,
Yeah,
mate. We'll
we'll
just
do
sit there and go,
that.
"Ha ha, we were correct." Champagne, mate. We'll do champagne because it's worth
Champagne.
celebrating.
I think look, we're not going to deride Nicola's choices because I think she's obviously got her reasons. Now, from outside looking in on this, because we don't have any connections or contact with Nicola's team, I assume she's just got a set time she wants to do the biking and she's backing her run.
Yeah, I think so too.
And that's the way she's approached it. And I mean, that might be the play. It's not for us to say yay or nay
What's
on
the
that.
gap
But
then, mate? What's the gap then? If that's what's going to happen, so she's going to. So let's say with this pack, they're going to ride similar-ish to what they ride a normal Ironman. Let's say, so what, I don't know, 5 something, and Cat's significantly faster. Like, what sort of gaps do you think Nicola could like? Because I also don't think like Cat's a good runner, mate. So
look, speculation is hard, and
do it. It's what we love.
taking us both out of the scenario of going to the event and being part of the team that are building it, as a fan looking on and just sitting in a pub with my mates speculating about this, I think Cat's gonna have 20 minutes on Nicola on the bike, mate.
I agree. Like, that's what
And
I
I
mean.
think,
And I'm thinking she ain't running 20 minutes in a Cat.
I know, and that's an unassailable lead. And I think, and I think we're going to see. How do I phrase this without pissing off all the triathletes that listen to our podcast? I think we're going to see because triathletes are very good bikers, all right, and almost like in terms of power, you can always be comparable with the pro peloton. But I think this is going to be a real example of the difference between a well-drilled pro cycling squad and triathletes in a pace line. And I think we're going to see that come into stark contrast. And it's going to be like, oh, okay, that's where they earn their money. You know?
Yeah, yeah. I think so too. Yeah, mate. Like I said, I like the difference. I like that we are going to see this drastically different approach, and it could. You know what? As I've said so many times, Nickelsburg is one of the greatest to ever do the sport, and you can't
Yeah, yeah.
ever like she earns the right to be considered, right up
Yeah,
there in this.
Nicola is excellent, excellent, and what she's brought to the sport of triathlon over the years can never be taken away. She's amazing.
I
So it's going to
just,
be a hell of a race, and I love watching it play out. And the fact they've got different strategies and different approaches makes it
yeah,
even
it's cool.
cooler. Love it.
The cat's gonna smash her, mate. Cat's gonna
Yeah,
absolutely
yeah.
wallop Nicola.
Yeah, I believe it.
Absolutely wallop her, mate. It's gonna be like, oh, I can't wait, mate. It's gonna be so good. I'm
Yeah.
so pumped for it now. So good. Anyway, let's move on, mate. Because I could talk about that. We should say we're there. We're on the ground, so we're going to be doing some cool stuff.
Yeah,
Hopefully with some good
absolutely.
coverage
We're both arriving on the Tuesday, I think.
on
Um,
Monday.
you're on Monday, are you? So I think I'm going to get the ferry across and bring my car down because
Okay,
I do like a
good to
long
have.
drive, and it's easier to bring my bike on the car. So
I was also going to say, I think what we're going to do a little bit. I'll be upfront with people. Listen, we're probably going to put a fair bit of the stuff we do race week is going to be members only. So if you're after some of the content we're going to create in race week, some of the interviews and things we do, you'll have to join the podcast. Maybe there'll still be stuff. We'll still do the regular episode and stuff like that. We're not sure exactly how it's going
absolutely.
to go, but I think we're going to try to give the inside access to the guys that support us.
And that
So
inside access is going to be very easy to get in this environment because
yeah,
it's a relatively small team running this event.
we're
So
all in the
we're
same
going to
hotel.
Yeah, exactly. So, anybody that's coming over to be part of the broadcast team or part of the event, we're going to have access to. So, it's going to be a very in depth and intimate look inside the Sub 7, Sub 8 project from the MX Endurance podcast because, we're all in the same family there.
Exactly. I
I like
can't
to
wait.
call
It's
you
going to be
Uncle
cool, mate.
Tim. Uncle Tim.
That's my podcast nickname, is it? Uncle Tim.
No, Chicken Waffle.
Don't worry, my
I'm
my
sticking with
niece, my
Chicken
niece, for the first like 2 years, she called me Auntie Tim, and
Waffle.
I was
Nice.
like, okay, whatever, I don't mind,
Yeah.
Auntie Tim. But now I'm Uncle Timmy, so that's fine.
Okay.
That's
There you
fine,
go.
mate. There were some races that happened over the weekend, mate. And I'll tell you what, they were pretty fire. They were actually really excellent to watch, and that was WTCS Yokohama. Now, John Levinson at Tri 24/7 again, the great man. Go give Tri 24/7 all the love because they do the God's work, keeping us up to date. What's happening in triathlon has put together this summary. And he says it had been 10 years since a European woman had won a WTCS race in Yokohama, but Great Britain's Georgia Taylor Brown ended that statistic on Saturday in Japan. As they left the water at the end of lap 2, Bogran and Kingma reached the exit ramp first. But with 25 athletes within 20 seconds, the first transition and the early stages of the bike would be key to determining whether a breakaway would form. On the bike, with 1 lap to go, the leading pack included world champion, Commonwealth champion, Olympic gold and silver medalist, individual, Olympic gold, silver, and bronze medalist mixed relay, grand final winner, world triathlon ranking number 1, and under 23 world champion. With a massive lead, it was set to be a tough 10 kilometers to decide the podium. By 5 kilometers on the run, a leading group of 5 set to compete for the win over the closing 5 kilometers. GTB wasn't fading, and she started the final lap just over 8 minutes later. Georgia Taylor Brown and Perrier had broken clear. Over the next couple of minutes, GTB ramped up the pace further in an attempt to drop the French athlete and did just that. She said, I really suffered. I went out hard and I thought, if I die, I die.
Very Rocky
Georgia
4,
also now
that, isn't it?
takes
If he dies, he
yeah.
dies.
So Georgia also now takes the series lead as a result of this result. So first place, Georgia Taylor Brown. Second place, Leonie Perriel. Third place, Flora Duffy. Fourth place, Emma Lombardi. And fifth place, Maya Kingma. Sixth place,
Go Maya.
Taylor Nibb. Go Maya. Mate, did you watch this race?
I didn't. Time zones prevented me watching this race. I got my timings wrong, so I set my alarm to wake up to watch it, but I was late because I got it wrong.
I got to see it. I think I also got times, so I missed the swim. So when I got on, I think there were 5K to the bike, and there was that group at the front with Maya and Flora and Taylor and Leonie, and I think Taylor Spivey was in there too. And mate, it was like they put some decent time into that chase pack, and Maya was doing the bulk of the work on the front, and then it got on the run, and GTB just went kaboom straight away. She made this huge surge, and then the other group of women sort of stuck together, and they pulled her in. I thought, oh, GTB's gone way too early, too hard. She's blown to pieces, and then no, she went again, mate, and that's when you sort of started to see the group splinter. Leonie Perrot, who again is an athlete to watch this year. She's an exceptional runner. Was started to drift, and then there was a gap, and there was points. I haven't seen Flora Duffy look that out of sorts in a long time, but she managed to hold on for third. But mate, what a race! It was exceptional to see. It was really, really exciting racing from all the women. Yeah, and GTB, like she said, if I die, I die. I love that approach, and mate, she certainly left it all out there. So it was a
She
good
certainly
performance.
didn't, and she leads the WTCS rankings after this race, doesn't she? So we've got Georgia Taylor Brown in first place, Flora Duffy in second, Taylor Nibb in third, and Sian Rainsley in fourth. Georgia Taylor Brown holding 1925 points over Flora Duffy's 1856.
It's interesting because Taylor Nibb obviously has really stormed onto the scene the last 12 months. And she was up there for the bit of the bike, but she never really seemed. We think of Taylor Nibb and this incredible bike power. We saw her actually. She won this race last year. She secured her spot for the Olympics, and that, we know the rest is history. But she didn't seem like Taylor Nibb we're used to seeing. She was never really in the front. She seemed to be drifting off the back a little bit on the bike pack. And mate, she was like between her and Maya. So Maya was fifth. She was 48 seconds clear of Taylor. Like Taylor really didn't seem. I mean, it's early season, so you assume she's going to build through the year. But I was a bit like, didn't I don't know. I didn't expect that from Taylor, so it's interesting to just see that's where she's at. I guess she's like,
Yeah, I
we'll see.
mean, we've got different dynamics this year. Maybe her objective this year isn't to be consistent throughout, but to peak for various elements. I mean, you never know what's happening behind the scenes with different athletes and where they are in their journey towards the season and how they're approaching it. So, yeah, I think we will see a lot more from Taylor Nibb as the year goes on.
Cassandra Bergerand and Laura Lindemann both crashed out. It looks like Laura Lindemann had something happen and they touched wheels, and Cassandra ended, which was really disappointing for me because I really wanted to see Cassandra. I hope she's not hurt. I hope she's okay because I expect huge things from Cassandra Bergeron this year. Like I really think that if she's on, she could win the whole thing. To be honest, I
Yeah.
think her in that run race, she could have really tested GTB. Uh, so fingers crossed that they're all okay, both her and both Laura and Cassandra, because I want to see them. I want to particularly Cassandra firing this year.
Without
Do you want
question.
to go? Yeah. Do you want to go through the men's, mate? Oh, I'm happy to do it.
No, I'll do it. I'll do it, mate. This race I did wake up for. The swim had started. I don't know how I messed up my alarm time so much, but the swim had started, so I jumped in as it was taking place. Again, this summary was taken from Try 24/7, John Levinson. I have condensed it somewhat, so go on their website and read the whole thing because it's quite the journey if you read it in totality. Reversing their positions from last weekend in Singapore, Great Britain's Alex Yee came out on top after a fantastic battle on the run at the WTCS Yokohama on Saturday. Vince Louis led the way out the swim, with Connix and Louis both slow in T1. It looked more likely Yee and Wild would be able to ride up. By the end of lap 2, the lead group was a massive 36 athletes, including Yee, and that was soon to be added to by Wild and the rest. Everyone else was a minute back and likely already out of competitive contention. On the run, it wasn't long until Wild made his way to the front of the race, but Yee was also looking good and worked his way into second, running on the shoulder of his friend and fellow Olympic medalist. Wild and Yee pulled clear with 5 kilometers remaining. They had a 13-second advantage over Leo Berger and a 21 seconds over Pierre Lecour. Wild was leading the way and looking focused, with Yee seemingly content to follow. Both looking great, they reached the blue carpet together before Alex was able to sprint clear, take the victory, and turn and bow to the Japanese crowd. He beat me last weekend. I got him this weekend. I forgot how hard racing was. So the results were Alex Yee in first place, Hayden Wild in second, Leo Berger, the Shepherdess, in third, Matthew
The
Hauser in
Shepherdess.
fourth, and Pierre Lecour in fifth. I was screaming at my phone, mate, watching this, lying in bed, going, Hayden, stop leading out the front, mate. Take a beat, make him lead. But he didn't, and he got out sprinted. But I know that Hayden did some zigzagging across the road. He was trying to get Yee to go to the front before he did. But, I suppose in that scenario, you're either going to win it or you're going to lose it. And if he'd just pulled back, they may have been caught by the group behind.
Well, that's exactly it, isn't it? Like, we're not talking about the people like Lee Berger or the Shepherdess is like an exceptional athlete. Like, these Matty Hauser, like everyone behind. We're not talking, mugs. But like Hayden, I think it's what's interesting. A few things I noticed of interest in the men's race was firstly that Alex Yee was out of the water a lot quicker than I expected. Like his gap was minimal, and he bridged up to that lead group very, very quickly. So Yee was basically in the group almost, like it was basically he was just there. And fucking hell, mate, Hayden was alone with the Hungarian guy whose name escapes me. But Hayden worked like a dog to get back up to the group. Like I couldn't. You could see on the gritted teeth, like giving it absolutely everything. And I thought, oh man, I hope this doesn't cost Hayden too much. Like he's really had to commit to this. And then went straight to the front of the group and started trying to push the pace again. Like you could see once Hayden got to the front, that huge peloton of men started to splinter. Like there suddenly was like 3 different groups. Then for him to get on the run and just go like a bat out of hell, like they gapped the rest of the guys, those two together instantly, and ran shoulder to shoulder. And like I don't know if you're Hayden Wild, like what can you do to stop? Like Yi is such a good runner. You
Yeah.
can't run you're not going to be able to break him, I don't think, and you can't force him to go to the front because I don't necessarily love the way Yi races, but Christ Almighty, like he is
Oh,
so good and he's doing stuff very very smart. Like
he races
mate,
in a
he's going
way
to win the
that
whole thing this
gets
year.
him results. Yeah.
Yi's going to.
Hayden's
He's going to
Wild's
win the
not
whole
bad at
thing.
this triathlon thing, is he? He's
Oh,
not
mate,
bad. He's not bad
Haydos
at this.
is
Yeah.
fucking hell. He's good. Red Bull, mate. Good on you. They finally they came to their
Recent Red
senses.
Bull athlete Hayden Wild. I mean, like you say, Hayden's trying to break him on the bike, and he wants that. He wants to put pain into Yi's legs so that when it comes down to the run, that pain is there and it gives him the edge. Now, Hayden had to do a lot of work to catch up with the group, and then he went to the front. If Hayden's with Yi at the start of the bike ride, that's when he can really capitalize on that bike strength he's got and go to the front and put the effort into the Yi's legs, which will pay dividends at the end of the run. On this one, I think Hayden, like you say, Hayden had to work quite hard to get into a position where he could start putting some damage, and that damage wasn't quite enough to win the race. But still, a brilliant finish. What a finish, eh? Loved it.
Oh, mate. And that moment where Yi handed Hayden the water bottle, or it was the other way.
Yeah, yeah.
Hayden handed Yi one of them handed the. I think Yi
Yi handed
handed
Hayden
Hayden
a
the
water
water
bottle,
bottle.
and Hayden patted him on the back and said,
Mate,
"Cheers for that."
again, I love that shit. Like
Yeah,
we talked about somebody did that in Leeds last year. Was it actually might have been Maya, maybe? But
yeah.
I love seeing that. Like
I
the
love it as
camaraderie between these
well.
guys.
Is there a passive aggressive element to it though? If I'm
In
racing
what
with you,
sense?
if I'm
Mind
me
games?
and you are racing shoulder to shoulder, let's say, and I'm like,
So I'm
you
walking
might
and
be,
you're jogging. Yeah,
you
yeah.
might, yeah, you might be suffering, but I'm just feeling good enough to hand you a bottle, and I don't need it myself, but you look like you need it because
I
you're
love it, mate.
faster.
That's what I mean. Like I also love that aspect of it.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
the
same.
I love the sportsmanship of it, but I also love the thought that it is like that. Like, oh mate, you're suffering. Oh, here you go.
Yeah, yeah.
No worries. And you see Ye say, "Oh, this was so hard. Forgot how hard it was." I'm like, I don't buy it. He always looks the same, mate. He just looks. And as soon as he broke Hayden, you could see like Hayden dropped so quickly. Once Ye went,
Yeah.
Hayden was done. You could tell
Well,
that to me tells me Hayden was on the limit the whole way.
yeah.
And
Hayden's card is to get rid of Yi before that sprint, and he will crack that code, mate. 'Cause, he won last weekend, but he'll crack that code over these distances. He will, and
okay,
this time he just didn't quite manage to wear the man down before that final sprint.
well, what we talk about, and this is something we've been speaking a lot recently offline, is about this like the unbeatability of people, or the mind games that go into it. A lot of times now it's come down to these two, and you can see Hayden doing it. Like I think that Super League Jersey race where Hayden did, I think it was more about Vince, but it was the Brownlee, the Johnny Yee sprint finish. I still think arguably the best finish I've seen to a race. Then you
Mm.
think of the Olympics where Christian broke them both, and then Yee broke Hayden, and like it just to me is every time these two come, like it just keeps happening the same way where Yee's just got Hayden's number, and I wonder at what point. Like I think there's two ways. Hayden can either be like, "I'm going to get you, mate. I am going to get you," or is it like, "I just can't beat this guy. I
Nah,
can't do it. I don't know what it is. I am
nah.
running so fast that I could potentially go to the Commonwealth Games and the Olympics for New Zealand, and I cannot beat Yi." Like that's what I'm curious about. Is at what point does that start to get in his head a little bit?
I don't think it does. Knowing Hayden as we do, I don't think
Yeah.
Hayden's brain is ever going to say, "I can't beat this guy." That's not.
Yeah, don't
That's not.
message me, Hayden.
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah,
saying it for the podcast,
yeah.
mate.
You hear that, mate? Tim thinks you can't beat him.
I hypothesized. I hypothesized. I
I
came up with a
I
scenario.
don't see that as how we see in long course people deferring to others quite often in terms of specifically two greats that have existed for some time. I don't see that as much in the short course game, and I certainly don't see
Yeah.
it from an athlete like Hayden Wild, whose ascent has been quite um, you know
We've been
quite
saying it for years, mate. We've been
yeah
saying it for bloody years.
exciting to see, and I don't see that at all.
I said it. I think Yee's going to win the series this year.
Yeah,
I think he's got it. I think I swear Tyler on last week We spoke to Tyler. He got smashed in the swim, swallowed a bunch of seawater, and something's gone wrong because he's been sick ever since. He had
Yeah, yeah.
debilitating stomach cramps
He ingested
on
something,
the
didn't
run.
he?
Yeah, which is not good. And then Vince, it looks like something was wrong with Vince too. He was a bit because something happened during the bike where Vince went off the back a little bit and he was sitting up, and then he just as soon as he was just nowhere. And I remember going, "Oh shit!" Like I thought Vince was going to come out fire, but man, I have question marks over Vince. I think, like I said, I think he's starting to do that little thing where he's kind of got too many. Is he going? Is he going a middle distance now? Is he staying? Like I don't know where
No,
Vince is.
Vince is a an enigma right now. Where's he going to
Mm,
go? Where's he going to find the form? What distance is he going to focus on? It's going to be interesting to see that shake out. So, despite you saying that Alex Yee is going to win the WTCS, the current rankings have Leo Berger, the Shepherdess, leading on
Shepherdess.
2075 points, with Antonio Serrat Cerrone on 1923, Pierre Lacour on 1523, Hayden Wild in fourth place on 1504, and Tim Helwig on 1484 in fifth.
Now, the next couple of things I want to talk about are sort of that we're going back to St George. We've got a little bit of stuff to talk about St George, but I want to sort of tie them together because they're both related. And again, the first one's not. I don't think it's much, but it's worth noting is the fact that all pro women finished St George compared to the men, which had I think the men had 24 pro women on the start list and 24 finished, whereas 38 men started, but only 27 finished.
Yeah.
And the one, I mean, some of the athletes who DNF were Bart Arnold's, Christian Hogenhag, your friend, Patrick Nilsson, Matt Russell. I saw Matt Russell as he withdrew. I think it was at the bottom of Snow Canyon. He looked defeated.
Yeah.
So I think he had a pretty rough day. That was a rough course. France's Dennis Chevreau, Argentina's Mario D'Elias, Portugal's Pedro Gomez, Australia's Michael Weiss, and Australia's Matt Burton and Max Newman. But the one I wanted to talk about was Andreas Dreitz. Now, I don't think you saw this, but I was with Fernandez/Napoleon, friend of the podcast, on the e-bikes, and we saw there was that spot, mate, where when you came back down from Snow Canyon, where the run, it's basically where the bike course and the run course, there was this big intersection,
Mm-hmm.
and we saw an ambulance there, and I was like, shit, is something happened? And like nobody could really tell us, but it turns out that Andreas Dreitz crashed at the Ironman World Championships. I got this from Ronnie von Louise Schoenveld that tried today. And he said out of the race day before it really started, about halfway through the bike part, or about 90K, Cam user Andreas Dreitz had crashed. On Instagram, he confirmed, a motorcycle suddenly stopped in front of me in the middle of the lane of the narrow section just after coming down Red Hills Parkway. Very fast. And again, this is at the bottom of a big descent. Like when I was riding it, I was like, I did not enjoy that descent. It was quite gnarly. Dreitz tried to avoid it, but couldn't stop himself from hitting the motorcycle. I hit my brakes hard, but there was no way to stop so fast and no space to get around it. After a first check, a fracture of the spinous process of the lumbar vertebra, swollen left thigh, and many scratches. He's back in his apartment, but no further comments for now. Now, the worst part about this, mate, is there's a photo of his bike, and the fork is snapped clean, mate. It's snapped off the bike. Now, I wanted to discuss this because this is not his fault. This is a motorcycle on course stopping with a guy going probably 60K an hour plus
Yeah, it reminds
behind him.
me
And
of
this is something we hear a lot.
Richie Porte in the Tour de France when he went into the back of that camera bike, going up one of those climbs, and then Chris Froome was running up the road behind him in the yellow jersey. It's a real shame when outside influence like this affects the race. Firstly, because most importantly, the danger to the athlete's health, well-being, life. Because when you're in the middle of a race like this and you're a pro and you're racing on what you are guaranteed a closed, safe roads, and you come around a corner and there's a motorcycle stopping in front of you, you're going to be all in at that point. And who knows? It sounds like you've got some injuries, but they're lucky that it wasn't anything worse and that he's not in a worse condition, and is lucky that he's still alive. So that's your first issue. But also, outside influence from a motorcycle that's meant to be part of the race, meant to be amplifying it, has affected the result, and that's just it's a shitter.
And again, like I said, we hear not just from these sort of points of view, but we've heard. I mean, Joe Skipper, for example, is very vocal about the impact that motorcycles have on the bike.
Yeah.
I just don't know what that may. James Overy from Race Ranger. That's what we need. We need to get Race Ranger involved so there's less motorbikes on the course. So,
Yeah,
James,
right.
there you go, mate.
There you go. There's your opportunity.
Again, I also hope Andreas is okay because, again, it sucks. You're
It
a
does.
professional athlete, and it's not.
It really does suck.
So,
And quick recovery, mate. And yeah, onwards to the next one.
well, let's talk about the next one. And I got this. We're going to lead into this with the article that comes from Kevin McKinnon at Triathlon Magazine Canada this week. And that is that Gustav Iden joins the Challenge Championship field. Some big news for this weekend's Challenge Championship in Samarin, Slovakia. Ironman 70.3 World Champion Gustav Iden will be on the start line. Eden was forced to pull out of the recent Ironman World Championships in St. George because of a chest infection. The Norwegian joins a strong field that includes Frederick Funk, Kyle Smith, Mickey Tagholt, and Peter Heinrich, as well as Magnus Ditlev and Josh Amberger. Iden is familiar with the race venue, having competed in last year's Collins Cup. He said, "I'm very excited to be back racing here at the amazing venue at the Expo Sphere. After some sickness in the last few weeks, I'm very grateful Challenge family was able to give me this opportunity on such short notice. I don't expect to be on my all-time high, but still really looking forward to being on the start line for my season opener." In the women's race, defending champion Lucy Buckingham will take on a strong field that includes Emma Pallant-Brown, Amelia Watkinson, Fenella Langridge, Daniela Blimel, Sarah Perez-Sala, and Ashley Gentle. Also worth noting, India Lee, one of Kat's paces, is racing, and Lisa Norden is also on the start list. Jimbo, the Challenge Championship. Do you care?
No. I mean, I think there's an interesting field there, and there'll be good racing, I'm sure. It's cool to see that Gustav Iden is, after his illness in St. George, is healthy enough to go and race and get a bit of a hit out. I think it would be hard to look past him for the win on the men's side. I quite like the look of that women's field as well. Emma Pallant-Brown is an athlete that always spikes my interest because I like the way she races. Lucy Buckingham,
mate.
yeah, I'm getting there. Lucy Buckingham will put in a strong swim, but Ashley Gentle is clearly, in my mind, probably
70.3 world champion.
Probably the favourite for that race. And it's cool to see India Lee racing as well. Before she goes out to Germany and does the sub-8. So yeah, it's good. Look, it's going to be an interesting race. How much of it you'll be able to watch? Is there a broadcast? I don't know.
I think there is.
It's one of the less, for me as a fan of the sport now, it's one of the less exciting races of this year. But I hear, we'll keep an eye, shall we?
I just don't get the point of it, mate. Like, it's not a world championship because we've got about 36 of those. It's the championship. And one of the things I have a massive issue with this race is they keep talking about the $100,000 prize. It's like, no. It's $100,000 prize purse. So it's $15,000. That's not, we're not shaking the core of triathlon with a $15,000 prize for first prize, which is apparently their championship event. Some things I think is worth noting, like, again, Gustav acting like he's like, "Oh, thanks for letting me race." No, they're probably like, "Thank God you're coming to race." Magnus, I can't wait to see. Kyle Smith again, mate. Again, I think Kyle surprised a lot of people in St. George, but we know how good Kyle is. We were trying to get Kyle into the arena games at one point last year. He could be right up there, and I hope, because we've always seen that Kyle's run sort of fades a little bit at the end. I think it was it in Lanzarote where he faded to Leo Berger earlier this year, so he's good at this distance. But yeah, I mean, it's Eden. Like I love you, Magnus, but I think it's Gustav. And then everybody, and again, I hate to be that like, oh, it's over before it started. Anything can happen, but
come on, Magnus,
easy, mate.
Come on, Magnus.
Come on, Magnus. Go, hey, he ran a 2:40 marathon, mate. Magnus has got run legs.
Yeah,
the women's though, there's a few things like you say you think it. I sort of jokingly say Ash Gentle. I think it probably is, but Sarah Perez-Sala has been on one lately, mate.
Yeah.
Like she had that stupid crash at Challenge Miami, but there's some fire in this field. Lucy Buckingham, great swimmer. Also, Nicholas Pacer. Emma Pallant-Brown can run like the clappers. Amelia Watkinson, another one of Nicholas Pacer's. Fenella Langridge, she raced St. George. Good swimmer as well. But Sarah Perez-Sala and Ash Gentle and Emma Pallant are the three that I'm really sort of looking at. But I'm not going to watch this, mate, to be honest. I'm curious because of Gustav. I might tune in, but...
Yeah, I mean, I'll monitor it.
I'll
monitor it mainly because I want to see how Magnus goes. But
now, James.
Yes, mate.
Last week you were a little lackluster with the next thing you got to do on the podcast.
I
drew attention to it,
I was struggling,
and you ignored me and kept going. So I expect you to make up for it this week with an extremely what's the word I'm looking for? Enthusiastic introduction to the next part of the podcast.
Welcome to the down low on the PTO. Did that pass muster?
Like music to my ears, mate. I
Yeah,
could
we're
feel my ears
back.
tingling. The sexiest voice in triathlon
We're
whispering
back.
sweet nothings into my ear. It was gorgeous. Take it
So
away,
we,
Jimbo. What's
yeah, we
happening?
well, we had the pro am race with Haven Shepherd, Lionel Sanders, and Paul Felder racing to victory in downtown LA. With 9 athletes spread across the 6 teams, the Pro-Am event belonged to the CAF stars as much as the PTO professionals, with both groups of athletes uniting to show their strength, passion, and competitive desire. The race provided compelling viewing as the CAF athletes and their PTO and amateur teammates raced together. The 3-time Paralympian Chris Hammer, Team Jackson, and 2019 World Para Swimming Championship silver medalist Ahaya Lattenberger, Team Chura, traded the lead in the water, but it wasn't long before an excellent swim from Endeavour Games silver medalist Haven Shepherd put Lionel Sanders in the race and soon after the lead. Sam Long was next on the bike, but thanks to a great swim from 3-time Paralympic swimmer turned rock climber Emily Gray. Meanwhile, 17-time World Triathlon Para Triathlon event gold medalist Eliza Seeley and number 1 in the US Paralympic 100 meters freestyle Jamal Hill passed the baton to Daniel Beckergaard and Sky Munch, respectively. Ripping through the bike course, Sanders reached downtown LA with a significant lead to pass the head of the race, and former UFC star Paul Felder behind Daniel Beckergaard caught Sam Long at T2, leaving modern pentathlon Olympic silver medalist Heather Fell and 5-time Paralympic medalist Rudy Garcia Tolson to duke it out on the run for podium places. Meanwhile, Team Jackson was out after Heather Jackson suffered a blown out tyre on the bike. Despite the lead delivered to him on the bike, Fielder pushed himself to the limit on the run to secure the first ever PTO Pro-Am title with a new 10-kilometer PB for Team Sanders. Haven Shepherd, Lionel Sanders, and Paul Fielder reuniting at the finishing line. Heather Fell ran well with not even a wrong turn after lap 1 stopped her from claiming second for Team Beckergaard. With his usual class, Rudy Garcia Tolson ran strong to take the 3rd spot for Team Long. And did you watch this race, mate?
No, I didn't.
Have you seen that video of Heather Jackson's tire blowing?
I did. It
Yeah,
was
that's
good.
quite.
It was good
It was
footage, eh?
slow motion tire explosion. I didn't watch this race either, but I'm quite keen on what the Pro-Am race does, and it's good to see it play out. And it's good to see that some solid racing was undertaken.
I have thoughts about this. So
Go on then.
I love what they're doing about this, and it's funny how again I always talk about like that sort of seesaw yo-yo sort of thing. I go with these because when I heard the program was announced, I was like, man, this sounds awesome. Like I'm keen for this. It sounds epic. And then we sort of joked on the podcast that if they're going to get like celebrities involved, like they can't be, celebrities in it. And I saw the announcement, I was like, really? Like okay, they've got
Yeah,
GTN presenters, and again, fantastic, but like, really? But then, mate, what really got me super on board with this was the way that they integrated and folded in the Challenge Athlete Foundation athletes. I think that is such a fantastic thing to do to give these athletes, incredible athletes, a platform. I think it's amazing. So
yeah, I'm
I was like,
super into it
awesome.
for that. I think they need to up their celebrity game a little bit. I didn't get the call. Come on, Sam. I know you're out running at the
I know.
moment. Why?
That's what I think. I commented. I'm surprised that Jimbo wasn't in there, mate. Like you would have. You are the man who held Javier Gomez's feet in the water for a
For
good
50
15 meters,
meters.
mate.
Yeah,
50.
yeah.
There you go.
50 meters,
So,
yeah.
mate, you could have done some damage on that swim course. But
Sam, if you're listening, mate, get your people to talk to my people. We'll try and sort something out for the next one.
and by his people, he means me. So,
But I echo that, mate. I echo the giving the Challenge Athlete Foundation athletes such a platform like this is fantastic, and I want to see more of it, and I love it, and I love the. I do like a relay. I love
yeah,
a
me
relay.
too.
Yeah.
More than the couples championship one. This was like to
Oh
me.
fuck
If I
the
had to,
couples
yeah.
championship. Never again.
I just like bringing it up because I love how you react to it every time.
Yeah.
Again, I think different thing. I know that there's been. I saw some discourse online. I think it was actually Laura Siddle brought it up, that the fact that in the individual race, so there was the Pro-Am, but there was also the actual LA Herbalife Triathlon was happening at the same time. The men had a finish tape, but then they didn't have it for the women's. I'm like, that's poor form. But it's also not the PTO's fault. That's not their event. It's the Herbalife Triathlon people. The PTO were handling the Pro-Am. I don't know about the broadcast. I heard that it was okay, but again, I would rather see the PTO commit to their tour races and absolutely nail that broadcast rather than do that sort of, where they try to cover a few things. Like interesting talking about broadcast. I've heard again. I listened to Joe's podcast today. Apparently, the Ironman. I mean, I'd heard it from rumblings, but apparently, Ironman broadcast was awful at St George, mate. Have you heard anything about this?
I've heard a lot of online chatter about how it wasn't fantastic. I mean, look, people like to moan online, so I haven't seen it, so I can't give you a personal opinion on how the broadcast went or how it was. But
Apparently, they didn't even know the names of the people in the lead group. Like they couldn't. They're just like, oh, we don't know who's in the lead of this race. I'm like, that's
I know that
that's pretty poor.
there were quite serious tracker issues and quite serious data issues on the screen. I think
and just showed the leaders. Literally, none of the dynamic that was happening behind, none of that was shown. And apparently, once Danny took the lead, they just showed Danny.
Yeah, which is shit because there's a narrative to be sown when you're watching sports. It's what's
100%.
happening on the course. It ain't just stare at the leaders for 9 hours. No one wants to do that. So they've got work to do, and there are other organisations that are doing that work and are going to start providing a much better broadcast service very soon.
We had a meeting with Clash Endurance in St George actually, and they were talking to us about their broadcast. And one of the they were going to the level of detail where they're saying that even when athletes pass, they've got graphics and stuff for that. And I was like, man, like these are things that we don't always think about when you hear it out loud. Shit, yeah, that makes a lot of sense actually. Like,
I mean, they're leaning on the NASCAR model very hard, aren't they? And they've got the team behind that. So with sophisticated tracking and photos up the side of a screen where you can see where athletes are on the course and how movements are being. That's how you want to watch a race, man. The more knowledge the audience has got about what's happening on course, the more entertaining it is. That's basically how it works.
I saw the mock-ups today for the broadcast, the sub 7, sub 8, and holy shit, mate, it's gonna look cool. And again, I know some of the, or we both know some of the stuff, the links they're going to capture data from the athletes during the event. I think it's going to be pretty epic. So, but back to the PTO again. Anyway, excellent work with this pro-am.
Yeah, there's just a quick quote from Sanders at the end. He said, "I knew they had assembled a strong team because we were going to dominate this event from start to finish," said Sanders. Hayden got us a big lead, and then I just tried to hang on to it, and then Paul brought it home, so it was a lot of fun. It was a full-blown competition. I knew I'd be out here trying to compare my bike time to the pros and Sam Long and to Daniel Beckercard. So I rode as hard as I can, and I'm excited to go look at the results and see where I stacked up on the bike portion of the race.
Can you imagine him not? Like, the thought of Lionel going to a race and just like going through the motions is like he would not. You could be like, Lionel, this is a fun run. This is don't. Mate, he would just go like he can't not like.
Lionel,
I know that I used to do parkruns a fair bit.
We're doing a 5K fun run. Yeah, go ahead.
I used to do parkruns and I'd be like, you know what, Des, this week I'm going to run with you. I'm just going to jog. And that gun would go, boom, 100 miles an hour. Lionel, to me, like the thought of him going, yeah, it's like, of course it is, mate. You are Lionel Sanders. You have all or nothing. And I'm not surprised to read this.
And quote from Shepard, I would definitely say this is the greatest way to go into your late teens. I just turned 18 years old and going into my Olympic Games and then being asked to do this triathlon with these guys. I was very thankful that they chose me to be on their team. I wanted to go out really nice and smooth, but I definitely booked it on the way back to the shore. Felder says, I didn't do any course preview. The hills were for real out there. When you were going up that thing, it was steep, so I knew, okay, I could get sub 40. I ran hard and I got to run out there with all the pros and had such a good start with these guys kicking it off for me. So it was awesome. I like the dynamic, man, between pro athlete, celebrity and Challenge Athlete Foundation athlete. I love that. I think more of this. Let's go.
I did see Paul Felder on the run, and man, he was booking it. Like he was not mucking it. And he's an MMA guy. So he's a UFC fighter, and you don't necessarily assume they're going to be the best runners. Fuck, man, he looked fantastic. He was flying.
Wouldn't fuck with him either, would you?
Cool. Good.
You wouldn't fuck with him.
No. Imagine you see him on the run course and you give him the bum tap as you pass him. He just turns it fucking. Those instincts kick in. You're like, I've made a huge error. I'm sorry.
I've made a big mistake.
I regret my decisions. James Bale, you know what decision you won't regret? That's going to mxendurance.com/podcast. It's how you support the podcast, keeps us doing things like going to St. George, sub 7, sub 8, maybe Kona, who knows, but it's how you tangibly help us continue to do this podcast. Do you know next week's actually our 200th episode, Jimbo? We've been doing this for bloody ages, mate. But
yeah, we need to do something special next week, don't we?
Yeah, I know. Or we just act like it's a regular episode and don't make a big deal about it. Either one will probably happen. Because again, the 201 episode in subs going to be epic. But again, if you enjoy the podcast, you want to get a whole suite of benefits, including discounts on partners like Mortan, Blue 70, for example, and a bunch of others. Head to mxendurance.com/podcast. Helps us, keeps us doing this. Prices as little as $3.40 a month. We give you guys stuff because of your support for us. And as I said, now's a really good time to get on board because we are going to be doing some really cool stuff at Sub that is going to be member exclusive. So head to mxendurance.com/podcast. James, I usually say this, but if they want to find out other things, what do they need to do?
If you want to find out more about MX Endurance, head to mxendurance.com or search MX Endurance on Facebook or at MX Endurance on Twitter or Instagram. If you want to follow me, I'm at bale.james85 on Instagram, or you can follow Tim at tford14 on Instagram. Jump onto iTunes, give the show a review, do it in the podcast app, so it's super easy and really helps us out. If you like what we're doing, tell a friend, help us grow. If you've got any thoughts, suggestions, comments, or criticism, send an email to podcast@mxendurance.com.
I always love when you start doing that because it's like I turn off my iPad and I'm like, show's done. We've
We're
wrapped it up.
done.
We've survived another week.
Yeah,
It's time
turn
to
the
chill.
engine
James
down, get the
Bale,
car home.
a pleasure as always. Talk to you next week.
Cheerio.